I absolutely love when I can pull a prank on Dave as he comes back into the office today. He was, as we like to say, on assignment. I had the banana peel just outside the doors here at Big Play at Burke Lakefront Airport. And yes, he fell for it. He did fall indeed. And prank done. Well done, Chico. All right, welcome in, kids. It is a Thursday edition of the Chico Borman Show. So great to have you along. 216-626-7901 is the number to get involved if you want to talk about anything on your mind. We've got plenty to talk about today, and if you'd like to chime in there, certainly feel free. We have, coming up at 2 o'clock, we're going to talk a little Cavaliers basketball. We've been saying it for the last couple of days. Cavs, of course, in action again tonight against Brooklyn, in Brooklyn. But it is looking more and more like the Cavs and the Knicks collision course in the first round. Cavs with the home court there. Chris Manning with the Locked On Cavs podcast and writes for Forbes and Fear the Sword. And he's got like 7 or 8 different. How many W-2s is that dude signing and filling out? But Chris Manning, one of my favorite guys to talk Cavs with, we'll do that with him coming up at 2. March Madness is back as we have 4 games on the slate. We're going to have a little fun with this. Your confidence level with the spreads 1 through 4. We'll get into it here in just a moment. But Michigan State taking on Kansas State, Arkansas and Connecticut, FAU against Tennessee, and then the late game tonight, going to be a dandy, we hope, we think. I'm not so sure, though. We'll talk more about that one as well. Gonzaga and UCLA, but we'll get into your confidence picks there, 1 through 4. And then, of course, and we're going to start with the Browns. Now, if you tune in yesterday to the show, yep, there we go. Yep, already it happened. Yep. Unplugged my screen. That's all right. Yesterday, as we were finishing up the show, a lot was coming in fast and furious. Remember, Nick was talking about Mecole Hardman, and the report was that the Browns had gotten him. That wasn't the case. He went to the Jets, but somebody from the Jets coming over to the Browns in the form of Elijah Moore. We didn't really have a chance to get into that a whole lot. We did talk about Anthony Walker re-signing with the Browns. I think that's a big one on the defensive side of the ball. We talk about leadership. We talk about guys that you need to have in that locker room to, again, not only bring leadership, but hopefully be able to bring these guys together, get everybody on the same page. We know that was not the case a year ago, and they suffered because of it. Yes, there were other obstacles, but they suffered mightily because of that. So I think first and foremost, we talk about Elijah Moore, and okay, I'm going to go ahead and say right off the bat, it's what I've been saying since Friday, which was our first show. It's not that I'm not excited about some of these acquisitions. I think Obo's a really nice acquisition. I like Dalvin Tomlinson. Juan Thornhill being the center fielder there, replacing John Johnson for, that was really, really nice that he earned every bit of that $33 million or whatever the hell it was he was given. Again, not saying he was terrible, but he certainly wasn't the guy that we all thought he was in L.A. and should have been here with Cleveland. So Juan Thornhill comes in from Kansas City. Hopefully he's going to be a nice addition. Bottom line, though, is I can sit here and say, yeah, I like that signing. I like that signing. And normally, and I know for a talk show purpose and for our purposes here, my purposes here with the Chico Borman Show here on the Big Play Network. I almost said Big Ten. The Big Play Network. And you can also find us on Twitter at Chico Show CLE. It doesn't work just to say, yeah, talk to me in September. No, we got to have opinions. And I do. Like I said, some of those guys I like. But the reality is I'm saying I just don't know because I really just don't know because the Browns haven't This was supposed to be, if you look at 2020 and you look at how the season played out, through COVID and what they were able to do, and they get to the postseason and they knock off the Steelers, and you're thinking, well, that's going to be a building block for years to come, and that now when you're bringing in players, you're simply filling in with guys that are quote unquote a Cleveland Browns player. And when I talk about that, other organizations, the Patriots did it for many years. The Steelers did it for many years, still do kind of. Baltimore Ravens have done it for many years. And I know that hurts because that's two teams in your division. But what I'm getting at is you have identified your players, guys that fit what you want to do, guys that fit what you want to do on the field, but also guys that fit what you want in your locker room as a culture, all of that stuff. By now, the Browns should be there. The Browns are not there. That doesn't mean they don't have talent. They have talent. But they are not there in terms of everybody on the same page and what exactly. And a lot of that is, now Joe Woods is out, Jim Schwartz is in. Hopefully that's going to be for the better. But you're still trying to figure out, who you are, what you are. And that's why I say we just won't know until, we get to see some of these guys and how they all mesh and all of that good stuff. So certainly want to hear from you as I mess with I'm going to do this right now again on the air. Here we go. I don't know what I hit.
So you lost that monitor over there?
Just this screen right here, yeah.
All right, it's probably just that main HDMI. I got the phones up, so if people want to call in, I could man the phones.
I think I figured it out. Go ahead. You got the phones?
Yeah, the phones are up. So if people want to give a call, 216-626-7901 is that phone number to call. We're also about to fire up a Twitter Spaces live on air. So if Chico doesn't have enough to deal with that HDMI cord, he's going to be talking to people live on the Twitter machine as well. So again, that phone number, 216-626-7901. And we're about to fire up a live Twitter Spaces to come chat with Chico right on Twitter at Chico Show Clee.
Now, Nick, can you explain what you know me. And by the way, let me just, before I go any further, I can't believe I went how many minutes into the show? 9 minutes into the show. This is me being humble, I guess, but somebody, won't mention any names, secured an Instagram account last night, Nick.
Look at that. I saw that. Chico on Instagram. Folks.
That's right. Chico_Borman. I feel very vulnerable now. I don't know why.
You don't have any posts. How could you feel vulnerable?
I don't have any posts.
Zero posts.
But
Chico, you also still haven't followed me back.
Oh, you know what? I had to fill out some paperwork. I was trying to get the nuts and bolts of the paperwork from last week that we didn't get in, and now that screen went out. What the hell's going on here? I feel like Lombardi. What the hell's going on out here? You know what it is? Yesterday, McAllister wasn't here. It was just you and I, and we were just, it was smooth sailing. Now Dave comes back into the office, and we've got all sorts of issues, but we'll make it through. But I did get the Instagram account secured because enough people were saying, "Dude, you got it." And then I didn't realize the shorts from the show, the little clips,
reels.
Yeah, the little reels. Yeah, you were calling them shorts, and was like,
they're shorts on YouTube. YouTube are shorts. Instagram are reels.
Oh, let me write that down. That's a good one to know. On YouTube, they are shorts.
And that's at the Chico Borman Show on YouTube.
At Chico Borman Show on YouTube.
We're live every day.
Yep.
And then the Instagram is the same thing, Chico Show Clee, but the Instagram videos are called Reels, not Shorts.
Reels. And what those are is, hey, maybe you haven't had a chance to listen to the entire show top to bottom. Certainly we give you plenty of opportunities to do that. But you're on the run, you're on the go, you got the kids, you got to pick them up. You want to kind of get a gist of what we talked about. Thus, we have the Reels for you on Instagram. But got that taken care of, so we're going to obviously going to be looking at that. But the Spaces thing What exactly is the Spaces now? They will be.
So Spaces is literally like like its own little mini radio show, own little mini podcast right on Twitter. So people, if they're already on Twitter watching your show live, I'm about to put it out right now. They'll be able to chat with you right on Twitter. So I get that we have the phone number up there. And again, it is 216-626-7901 to chat with Chico. But now, say you're watching the show on your phone right on Twitter, you don't even have to leave Twitter. You could just talk with Chico live right on your phone on Spaces. And hopefully, barring any Nick Padone tech issues, should work seamlessly.
No. Don't lump yourself in with me. I mean, I've already knocked out two screens here in a matter of 9 minutes. Like I said, it is all Dave's fault, but yeah, so that's going to be easy. Twitter Spaces, if you are well versed in that, you can do that. You can call us 216-626-7901. I'm curious. I think for the most part, I've heard many Browns fans say, "Oh, I'm really excited about the Browns free agency." You know, yeah, you would have liked to have, say, a Javon Hargraves or some other additions, Draymond Jones, but I think for the most part, you know, you're seeing what the Browns needed to add, what Andrew Berry needed to get busy doing, adding some talent, hopefully a lot of it, on that defensive line, adding on the defensive side of the ball. But yesterday, again, added the wide receiver. This was a hot topic with many of you, and one that, honestly, I didn't quite understand. Now, Nick Shook, our good buddy with NFL.com 2 days ago, was on with me, and he said, "Chico, do not forget." See, I'd been on a tropical vacation for 6 months, and I kind of did. Wasn't really on a tropical vacation, but I'll call it that. And I kind of forgot, like, yeah, you know what? Browns fans always want to upgrade and get that shiny new toy at wide receiver. And that shiny new toy, I think for many of you, was Jerry Jeudy of the Denver Broncos. Nice receiver, great route runner. I think very underrated, would probably, in the right system with the right quarterback, could be outstanding, okay? So this isn't a knock on Jerry Jeudy, but what some of you are coming to the table with was, oh, you know what? Why don't we maybe look to move Nick Chubb or Wyatt Teller and bring in Jeudy and swap picks? No. We're not talking about Justin Jefferson here. I mean, come on. Jerry Jeudy is good, okay? But I'm not giving up one of my two, integral players up front in Wyatt Teller and, of course, arguably the best back in the league in Nick Chubb, so I can somehow facilitate Jerry Jeudy getting here. Now, is Elijah Moore going to knock anyone's socks off? I don't know. I mean, that's why I'm asking you. We want to hear from you here at the Chico Borman Show. I think Elijah Moore, a lot of people are pointing toward last season. And they're saying, well, he only had one touchdown, Chico. My God, look at his numbers. He was terrible. Keep in mind the New York Jets were terrible last year. Keep in mind the New York Jets were a colossal failure on so many levels. And, of course, now you're talking about Aaron Rodgers. When, if that might happen, is Aaron going to go? Does he need to go back in solitary confinement into the hole at Shawshank with Andy Dufresne for a while to figure out if he's going to, he wants to play? But let's just say they do get Aaron Rodgers. That makes everybody better. Well, last year with the Jets, I mean, you saw it. Zach Wilson was terrible. I'll never forget that press conference, and I thought it was the beginning of the end for him, and it was, when they said, hey, Zach, anything you do differently getting ready for this game or for this game? And he's like, no, not really. You lost the game. Okay, I know we say it's a team sport. No, you were so bad that no matter how well your defense played, and they played well, and they really played well all year, it didn't matter because you hurt your team so badly. And Zach Wilson's like, I wouldn't have done anything differently. All right, yeah, that pretty much sealed your fate. You're out the door. So when we talk about Elijah Moore, his rookie season, he had 5 touchdowns. He's a guy that can take the top off of defense. Is he a bit of a head case? I don't know, because, again, you go back to that Jets situation, and anybody would be frustrated. Anybody would be upset. I mean, Garrett Wilson he had a few words too. I mean, everybody was frustrated, and justifiably so. But I think as far as Elijah Moore is concerned, I think it's a nice addition. And the other part of this is it's not a huge deal. You're not giving up a ton. And on top of that, you still have him for 2 more years on that rookie deal. And to me, that's a very big deal. 2 more years on the rookie deal allows, obviously, him to get better and develop, and hopefully he does with a great quarterback in Deshaun Watson, who we hope returns to greatness. But in addition to that, it allows you some flexibility. You're not, he's on a rookie deal, so there's not a big number there. So this is one of those low risk, high reward moves that Andrew Berry is famous for, and I think for the most part, you try to make, some of them don't work out, some of them do, but I think this one made sense. Okay, don't just look at his numbers last year and go, well, he only had 1 touchdown. I'd rather have Jerry Jeudy. Okay, you got to think about what goes into getting a Jerry Jeudy, which Denver wanted a king's ransom for the most part, so that wasn't going to happen. And then again, keep in mind, Elijah Moore is a wide receiver. He wasn't a first round. I think he was a second rounder coming out of Ole Miss. Is that right, Nick?
Yeah, he was a second round pick, which is also why the Browns can't extend him right now. And, some of the debate with Jeudy as well, at least you would have that 5th year to see what the Browns really have. You obviously don't have that with a second round pick in Elijah Moore. But like you said, Chico, still under contract for 2 years is that second round pick.
Yeah. So I think all things considered, I don't mind Elijah Moore whatsoever. I think it's a nice addition, and it's not going to knock anyone's socks off. I don't think it's designed to, but he is a guy that has upside. I mean, as a rookie wide receiver, and I know these days with all the rookies coming into the NFL at that position, a lot of them are ready-made, and there's just a plethora of them. So you say, well, Elijah Moore, hey, that's still 5 touchdowns. I mean, he scored 5 touchdowns his first year, and he was a difference maker. Now you put him in an offense where, no, it's not Zach Wilson. What was his other deal? Didn't he have a hankering for a friend's mom or something? Wasn't he
Yeah, what was that? It was something with, I think it was the friend's mom.
Was it a teammate's mom?
No,
or just
I think
friend?
it might have been a former BYU teammate, but it was.
Maybe that's what it was.
It definitely wasn't a Jet teammate.
He was a seeker, is what he was. He was one of those. Weirdo. I mean, he's a strange dude. But, if you can, hey, and this is the other thing, too. We got pro days going on. C.J. Stroud was yesterday, and Bryce Young. And, remember Zach Wilson? Oh, look at him roll to his left, come back and fire 60 yards in the air. Oh, my gosh. How does he do under pressure? He melted. That's what he did. He melted. He was more concerned about, his buddy's mom. That's not funny. I shouldn't laugh at that. What was funny was, though, that press conference. So, it was a mess in New York. It was a mess with the Jets. Don't let that be the only thing, and last year's numbers with Moore be the only thing you look at when you determine good signing, bad signing. Again, 216-626-7901. On this whole Twitter Spaces thing, do we got anything going on? Anything I need to be aware of, Nick?
Nothing that you need to be aware of, man. I'm manning it. So if anybody wants to request on the Twitter Space, just feel free to request, and you could come talk Browns on the show live with Chico.
Okay, so we can do that, recap Browns free agency and all the latest there. Mention college hoops. We're back at it with March Madness and the Sweet 16 getting underway tonight. Michigan State, Kansas State, Arkansas, UConn, FAU against Tennessee, and then the late game is Gonzaga and UCLA. I want to do a 1 through 4 with the spreads, by the way, courtesy of our friends at Tipico. 1 through 4, by the way, confidence level. Which game do you feel most confident about? Which game do you feel the least confident about? So I'm looking at some of these. numbers, and I said this yesterday, and I don't think it's changed. Last check I had, Nick, was Kansas State getting a 1.5 against Michigan State. That one surprised me. I like Kansas State in that game, and I know it's Tom Izzo, and I know it's Michigan State, and God bless you if you want to bet against Izzo in March. I totally understand it. I love Tom Izzo. I think he's great for college basketball. But Kansas State is a great story. Kansas State is a very hard-nosed basketball team. And I know that's Michigan State, but I think it's a good matchup for KSU. So that's a 1.5-point spread in favor of Michigan State. So KSU's getting a 1.5. And then we got Arkansas and UConn, which I think might be the most entertaining game of this. Now, separate the most entertaining game versus the game you feel most confident in if you're going to lay down a bet on Tipico. Arkansas and UConn. The Huskies are 4-point favorites in that game. We talked to Terrence Oglesby the other day. He thinks Connecticut is the most physical team left in the tournament. Obviously, there's 16 teams, so the most physical is 16, UConn. Now, you say, okay, there's other things that go into it. Sure, but there are a lot of teams. Tennessee, the game we're going to get to next, Tennessee played about as physical a basketball game as I've seen all tournament, and maybe we'll see all tournament. Tennessee absolutely bludgeoned John Shire and the Duke Blue Devils over the weekend. I mean, it wasn't even, it was men against boys. It was behind the woodshed. Rick Barnes is a guy dating back to his days at Texas with our good buddy Boobie Gibson, my colleague, Boobie Gibson. Rick Barnes is all about strength and conditioning, and all coaches are now, but even before it was like talked about as much, I'm sure Boobie will say, he was, it was a big deal. So his Texas team, now he's at Tennessee, and very, very physical. But again, Terrence Oglesby said UConn, without a doubt in his mind, is the most physical team left in the Sweet 16. They are a 4-point favorite against Arkansas. I don't think I think that's about right, because Arkansas, I think, is going to put up a fight. Arkansas, Eric Musselman, the whole shirt off and all that, they are a product of their coach. When Eric Musselman took over Arkansas a couple years ago, you could immediately see the difference. Remember, though, I don't know if you saw some of those practices that he ran that were running on ESPN. They were making, guys were just, you put up those football pads, the blocking dummies, whatever, not the dummies, but you know what I'm talking about. And guys are cutting across the lane and they're getting decked and they're having to, and his practices were brutal. And so Arkansas, again, another physical basketball team. They do have one of the best recruiting classes in the country, not only this year, but next year. Now, this year it was a little bit interesting because Nick Smith Jr., who I think was the top recruit overall, was out for much of the year. He's now back. So I'm not by any means saying I don't believe Arkansas can win this game, but I think the line's about right, and I do think UConn at -4 is probably a good number. Tennessee, 5-point favorite over FAU. I'll tell you right now, on the confidence scale, 1 being the most confident and 4 being the least confident, however you want to do it. 1 being, how about we go 1 least confident, 4 most confident? I'm going to go Tennessee is my most confident pick. FAU, it's been a nice run, but Tennessee, after watching what they did to Duke, in my right mind, I cannot pick FAU, and even with the 5 points, I think Tennessee wins by a dozen.
That's my pick, too. We talked about it a little bit on the show yesterday, just in the spirit of responsible gaming. I was, staying away from a lot of betting this week.
How you worded that, buddy.
I'm making my return tonight, and Tennessee -5.5, I think we got here on Tipico Sportsbook. That's what I'm riding with tonight.
Okay. Yeah, I think Tipico Sportsbook with the 5 point spread there. I like that one as well, an awful lot. So I'm going to make that my most confident pick of the 4 games tonight. Now the nightcap is very interesting because I think on paper, we say that way too much, by the way. On paper.
Especially in Cleveland. I think that might be like a Cleveland lingo, is like the whole on paper thing. It started with the Odell and Baker and Jarvis and Chubb.
Yeah, you're right.
On paper,
yeah,
this is a great offense.
So
now we just use it for everything.
Should we say on digital? Because now everything's digital. But not in my world, kids. Because this right here is paper. This is pen on paper. So this on paper... But we probably should change it to on digital because everything's digital. On paper or on digital, everybody thinks this is going to be a good game. UCLA is favored by 1.5. They should be the favorite. I think with UCLA, I think they're going to win this game. I don't want to say convincingly. I don't want to say, well, I do want to say convincingly, but I don't want to say running away with it. I don't think they blitz the hell out of Gonzaga. Gonzaga has a great offense, arguably the best in the country. UCLA, yes, they're banged up. They just lost David Singleton over the weekend as well. I doubt he's going to play, and that's a myriad of injuries, but yet they just continue. And remember who that coach is. And, yep, coaching really matters, especially when you get this far in the tournament, and nothing against Mark Few. He's pretty good himself. But Mick Cronin and UCLA, these guys talk about physicality. There's that word again. UConn, Arkansas, Tennessee. Well, UCLA does a pretty fair job there too. Gonzaga's defense is not good. Okay, now they can eliminate and they can cover up a lot of zits by scoring a lot of points, and they may very well do that here. But I think UCLA is going to make that very, very difficult to score points because, again, that is a top-flight defense, one of the best in the country. That's just how Mick Cronin coaches. Go back to his Cincinnati days. So I am actually – here's my debate. So I've got Tennessee FAU. Tennessee favored by 5 points, according to our friends at Tipico. Tennessee, without a doubt, is my most confident of the 4 games. So that's got a 4.
Same here.
My 3, believe it or not, I'm going to make it UCLA. And I don't think the Zags, while they've had a great year and they got hot at the right time, I also think it's funny, like, oh, well, Gonzaga's really having a down year. Well, I mean, okay, yeah, the championship eludes them, whatever, but if your down year is, you get hot to end the season and here you are in the Sweet 16 and you have a legitimate chance to get to the Elite 8, I'd say your program is on the up and up. And Mark Few is, without question, one of the best in the business. But I'm going to go UCLA as my second most confident pick. So in this case, number 3 on the confidence level. I just don't think Gonzaga for 40 minutes can keep up with that UCLA defense. And yeah, I know Drew Timmy's great and all that. I'm going UCLA 3 on that meter. Oh boy. The final 2 games, Michigan State and Kansas State. Kansas State is a 1.5 favorite. And Arkansas and Connecticut giving 4 to the Razorbacks. Nick Padone, who's with me here in studio, I think I'm going to go with Kansas State as my second to last most and
okay.
UConn, Arkansas. Nothing against UConn, but Arkansas is like I said, Eric Musselman's taken over. They're a different breed. Nick Smith Jr. is now playing, and we're talking about the top recruit in the country, in a system, in a college basketball environment where freshmen just walk right in. This kid couldn't, and he had, knee issues and more knee issues and more knee issues. But, gee, if you're going to get him back, March is a pretty good time to get him back. Ain't going to be easy. Sinaga and UConn, again, Terrence telling us that he thinks UConn's the most physical team, but that's the one that I'm going to say I have the least confidence in. So here we go. 1 through 4, most confident to least confident games of the 4 games tonight. Tennessee laying 5 against FAU. That's 4. UCLA giving 1.5 to Gonzaga. That's my 3. Kansas State getting 1.5. I do think Kansas State's going to win that game. I know it's incredibly dangerous to bet against Tom Izzo. Totally understand that. But Kansas State would be 2. And then Connecticut and Arkansas, the Huskies laying 4 would be my least confident. So, Nick Padone, who you got 1 through 4 as far as your confidence picks?
All right, I'll just jump right in front of this. I'm going to go with you. My number 1 confident team right now is Tennessee. For what they did against Duke, I'm with you all the way on that pick. I think that game has blowout potential tonight. I get FAU, the story, the Cinderella. They had a couple really nice wins, but the Sweet 16 is kind of where the big boys start to flex their muscles and separate themselves from the rest of the pack. So I'm going to pick Tennessee in that one. My next game with the most confidence, I'm actually going to go a little bit of upset special if you're looking at just seeding instead of the odds over with our friends at Tipico Sportsbook, and I'm going to ride with Michigan State. I've got a lot of faith in Izzo in this early game today at 6:30. He's been around the block forever. I picked Michigan State in my bracket pool to get upset really early. I feel really dumb now, so my second most confident pick is Michigan State. Number 3, I'm with you on this one too. I'm going with UCLA. The physicality of UCLA, the Tiger Johnson, Drew Timme pisses me off a little bit. I'm a little worried about him kind of, making his impact in this game. And like you said, they could score a lot of points. He's going to be cruising down below that basket and stuff. But I'm confident tonight that UCLA, who is my champion pick, will be able to pull this thing off. And then my last pick. I think this game will be an absolute crapshoot. Arkansas in their upset against Kansas last week absolutely busted my parlay. I did not think Arkansas was that good. I really think, how about this for a bet? I like Arkansas plus 4.5, but that's the game that I have the least amount of confidence in because I truly feel like anything could happen in that one.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, and I'm glad you brought up the Kansas game. Now, I know people will say, well, Bill Self wasn't coaching them, and would they have? Maybe. I mean, I'm not going to. Bill Self is one of the best in the business, no doubt. So you don't have your head coach, and yeah, you're going to be compromised. But
early in that game, too, Kansas was rolling. I think they were up like 14 at one point. They looked really good. They were dunking the ball. They were moving the ball really well offensively, hitting threes. Looked like they were having a lot of fun. And then come second half, out of halftime, what coach adjusted, what coach didn't? Well, the coach that adjusted had his shirt off after the game, and Arkansas was able to pull that one out.
By the way, Musselman, a much more acceptable look with the shirt off than Bruce Pearl.
Dude, you know what,
Bruce Pearl should never have his shirt off.
After the Musselman shirt thing, be in my shoes where you have a parlay you know was going to hit. You thought
it always goes back to the parlay.
You put $100 in to pay $300. It was going to catch you up on all the losses previously of that week. And then you see the goon that just beat you, that just ruined you, celebrating with his shirt off. I was furious. It's taken me a lot of time to reflect, to accept
I love this.
What happened. I get that he took his shirt off. I get that he was excited, but in that moment, I was like, "Put your shirt back on, you son of a."
You did better over the weekend than Dave did, didn't you?
I think we both did equally bad, man. It was bad.
I mean, there were a lot of, I mean, this is kind of the story of the tournament, but it kind of is always. I mean, it really has been, certainly recently, with these high seeds and with the upsets. But I mean, that's what makes it. I know it's cliche. That's what makes it so great, and that's why, like, even with the new rules, or even with NIL, even with one and done, and I mean. It's different because years ago you could follow a team and have a pretty good idea, and I'm going way back, but have a pretty good idea of the team that was coming back, and you knew if you were a Duke fan, say in the early 90s, you had Bobby Hurley and Thomas Hill and Grant Hill and Christian Leitner and, all that. Those days are long gone. But that, and I don't know if it's just, maybe that's it. It's the upset element of the NCAA tournament, which almost makes it foolproof. I mean, it's always going to be entertaining. But I will say this, like a school like FAU, great run. They're what, a 9 seed? Am I right about that? FAU's a 9 seed?
Yep.
Okay. This is where FAU has to bow out because unless FAU, like go back to George Mason when they made it to the Final Four with, by the way, Miami, who plays tomorrow night. That's going to be a game. Miami and Houston. Jim Larrañaga, who is, I think, probably top 3 most underrated coaches in America. Nobody talks about Jimmy Larrañaga. He's incredible. But unless you're George Mason, if you're gonna win, you got to go like almost all the way. You got to get to that championship because then we're gonna embrace it and it is gonna be something to watch. But if you're just gonna get blown out in the Elite 8, nah, don't do that. So FAU, while it's fun seeing the upsets, now we're into the portion of the tournament where you want the chalk because we want to see the great matchups. And like I said, we've got great matchups here tonight. You've got great matchups tomorrow. I mentioned Miami and Houston's going to be absolutely phenomenal. So many good ones. But let's hear from you. 216-626-7901. Again, 216-626-7901. 1 through 4. 4 being most confident, 1 being least confident. Give me your rankings for these 4 games tonight. Again, I've got Tennessee I'm most confident in tonight. No big surprise there. Biggest, I guess, spread or biggest deficit in terms of when you look at the seeds. But Tennessee, as I said, going back to that Duke game, my God, were they dominant. So Tennessee is my 4 and my most confident. Next up is UCLA. I do think they're going to handle the Zags. Kansas State is next up. Kansas State is getting 1.5, but against Michigan State, Nick, you said you like Tom Izzo's group. I have no problem with anybody that feels that way because, well, it's Tom Izzo. It's like Tom Izzo is in that class of, well, you're going to bet against Tiger Woods? Good luck with that. You're going to bet against Tom Brady? Good luck with that. He's in that, if you're not going to put Michigan State in a Sweet 16, I'm not saying you got to get them going all the way. And they've had some down years, but it's like come March, you don't want to leave out Michigan State getting to another Sweet 16, and they've done it again. But I think Kansas State's a nice story. I think Kansas State wins this game. They are actually the underdog, according to our buddies at Tipico. They are getting 1.5. I like Kansas State to win that outright. Am I that confident in it? No. But
toss a little $10 on that plus 105 money line.
Ooh.
Net you $20. Pay for lunch tomorrow.
We'll do that. We'll absolutely do that. Matter of fact, we'll get to it during a break because I want to bring Dave in on that as well. And then my least confident, obviously, Arkansas and UConn. UConn is very, very good, very, very physical. They've got their big man, but Arkansas, Eric Musselman, Nick Smith Jr., they just seem to they have all those ingredients cooking right now that could possibly vault them into the Elite Eight. So we'll talk more about that. We're going to get your responses on Twitter, also on the phones. And don't forget, coming up top of the hour, we're going to visit with our good pal Chris Manning. He is with the Locked On Cavs podcast, also writes for Forbes. Cavaliers in Brooklyn tonight. You're saying, wait a minute, didn't they just play? Yeah, they just played Brooklyn. They're going to play them again tonight. 8 games left on the slate. It is looking more and more, we're talking like 90%, 85%, that the Cavaliers and the New York Knickerbockers will be meeting in round 1 of the NBA playoffs. Cavaliers, of course, barring something unforeseen, with home court advantage. But we'll break down an early breakdown of that series. Hopefully won't jinx them. And also talked about some things that we feel good about, some things that we're a little concerned about with Chris Manning. That's coming up at the top of the hour. Stay tuned. It is the Chico Borman Show right here on the Big Play Network. Thursday, and coming up top of the hour, we're going to talk a little Cavs basketball. A lot of Cavs basketball, actually. Chris Manning is the producer.
Unmute yourself. There you go.
That was a prank by Dave, wasn't it? You would have thought that I would have heard that in my headphones, but
That's what I was like, I don't have him coming through.
it only took him 45 minutes to clean up the banana peel outside the door. What? Gosh, somebody could have really gotten hurt right there. I can't believe it. Somebody could have
plugged another HDMI there.
Did he really?
Get it out. You know what you are?
Say.
You're the new NBA rule where the guys like hang it, right below you when you go to. That's what you guys are doing with these cords. You guys are setting me up to fail here. It's okay. All right, coming up top of the hour though, Chris Manning. You can follow him at CWM Rights. We're talking Cavs, Locked On Cavs podcast, and Forbes. That's coming up at 2. All right, so we have decided now. What is our bet going to be, Nick?
Yeah,
or the game itself.
Now we really have to figure this out because Dave, before I should say, cleaning up his banana peel, he made a little wager, and it's out on Twitter, which, as we know, legally binding here, Chico.
Yes,
he
absolutely.
said, Friday lunch bet, big play Chico. The bet is up to you. If it hits, he buys lunch for the crew. If it misses, we all go hungry tomorrow.
And he doesn't even say what, if he buys lunch, like what, we could, technically, that's way, that it's wide open.
We've been on a Uber Eats DoorDash kick, and downtown, the options are our oyster, if you will. We've done.
Friday is Lent.
It is.
If you do, so I
might have to be a cheese pizza outing tomorrow.
I might want an entire fish fry, like all you can eat fish fry, to be brought in here, courtesy of Dave.
That's
a good idea.
I went to a fish fry a couple weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago because the bishop or whatever gave us the exemption for last week, which was St. Patrick's Day.
Right.
A couple weeks ago, I went to a dangerous part of town, which I didn't know was dangerous, to get a fish fry.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I got some looks.
Oh, that's all you.
I still went in there and got the food. It was delicious. It was absolutely awesome. I would go back there again, but some of the people that were in there kind of looked like they wanted to hurt me.
That innocent little baby face. Come on. All right. So which game, real quick, which game is it? The Arkansas UConn? Is that the one we're going with?
That's up to you, man. He put it on you. I said I'm coming out of retirement to put it on Tennessee -5.5 is what my number one confidence was, and I thought that was yours too.
Yeah, that's mine too.
All right, but for the bet,
we can pick any of the 4 for the bet.
Yeah, for the bet, it's completely up to us now.
I say UConn, Arkansas. I'm gonna.
Well, there's a lot of pressure on this. So what we can do, especially because we have some time, show doesn't end until 3 o'clock. Let's let this marinate. Let's also hit some of the phones. Okay. Again, that phone number to call in is right there on your screen. It's 216-626-7901. We have one bet to make tonight. What should our one bet be? Big Play Dave is offering lunch if this bet hits. I imagine that means that he's going to bet on this himself. And if this bet hits, we got free lunch tomorrow. If not, everybody's on their own, fend for yourself kind of thing.
Okay, so let me run through this again. Tennessee is a 5-point favorite over FAU. UCLA, that's the last game of the night. They are a 1.5-point favorite over the Zags. And UConn is a 4-point favorite over Arkansas. Kansas State is getting 1.5 from Tom Izzo and Michigan State. So which one do you think you would be the most confident in? Which we'll let them pick. We'll let the audience pick, which is always dangerous.
That makes me nervous.
Yeah, it should.
It's won me money before. It's lost me money before. So let's hear what you guys got again. 216-626-7901.
So I'm a little nervous beyond just that bet. I am. I'm putting my dog services out there, my dog sitting services out there.
Okay.
And I love dogs, by the way. Huge dog fan. And my buddy has a pit bull, and she is just, I mean, she's the sweetest damn dog. Love her to death. But last year, when I watched her, which was for about a week, this time it's going to be a couple of weeks, I had one of the scariest moments of my life. I was, at the time, I was doing the night show. So I was working from 7 to midnight. I got off at midnight, and I was walking her around the neighborhood, probably 1:30 in the morning. And it was raining, kind of like, we're experiencing now. It's March, so you're going to get like that yuck, freezing rain or whatever. It's coming in my face. So I walk out. I have a hood on over my head, and it's really like pulled. Like I can barely see anything because I just don't want to get it in my eyes. And, I'm very sensitive and all that stuff. So as we're walking, and she's usually, like I said, she's very well trained. But as we're walking, I notice all of a sudden, like she stopped. Like I just vaulted in front of her. I'm like, what the heck's going on? And then she starts growling, like not barking. It was just like and I'm like, what the? I look up, and there are 2 deer. Nick, I'm saying you're maybe what? 5, 6, 7, 10 feet away. I don't know. But no more than about 7, 8 feet away.
Wow.
2 deer in the headlights look, by the way, too, just staring at us. I mean, I can't. Now, you might say like, oh, well, it's a deer. You don't, I mean, deer, it's like any animal, right? I mean, if they feel threatened, and of course the dog, she's only doing her job. She's growling. I mean, it's, her territory, the deer, their territory. If anybody's the odd man out and the one that shouldn't be there, it's me. And if the dog could walk itself, I'd allow her to walk herself, but she can't. I can tell you that, and the deer just, they wouldn't move. It was like a stare down contest that I swear to God lasted about a half hour. It only lasted about, a couple of minutes, but I'm trying to get her. Now, pit bulls are very strong. And when they want to be like, they're very, very tough to move. And this was one of the cases where she didn't really want to be moved. She didn't want to, she wanted a piece. She wanted a piece of the action. At this point, honest to God, I was, after cleaning up her shit, I was going to have to clean up mine. Like that's because these deer, I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, and again, the eyes are bugging out. I mean, it's scary. So I'm back at it again this year with her, but I think the deer don't usually come out during the day, right? And not that I have anything against deer, but they're not out as much during the day as they are at night, right?
Right. I'm pretty sure like early mornings and the night are the 2 times that the deer are out most. I mean, sometimes you'll see them during the day, but I think that's like the biggest threat to like body one with your car, if I remember correctly, in driver's ed.
Is that night? Yeah. Yeah, you're right. So I hope, I'm a little nervous about that. And the other thing about when it's raining like that, like you have to pick up her, her little business. It's awful when it's raining. Anybody who has a dog, you know what I'm talking about. Like you got to reach down, and I don't know if you have a dog. Yeah, you have a dog, Nick.
I do. I have a dog.
You just leave it there, you don't pick it up.
So here's the thing, and this whole conversation really makes me laugh. My dog is afraid of everything, Chico, everything. When we go on a walk, if my dog saw a deer, my dog is 10 pounds. He's very small. Mm-hmm. He would be not growling. He would be cowering in fear between my legs. Like he gets like that if he were probably to even see this pit bull that you were walking, whether it looked at him, whether it growled at him, even just at the sight of it. He's just a timid guy. He's only 6 months old. Still very new to the world. Also with that, he is house trained, which is a blessing, but he only will go to the bathroom on grass. So sidewalk, the little corner of the street, no shot. I live downtown. Now, if you know anything about downtown Cleveland, not a lot of grass.
No.
So guess who walks little baby Bo about a quarter block every couple hours when he's got to go to the bathroom? Me.
I would say at least twice a week, right after winter would thaw, and we get conditions like this, where dogs didn't they didn't want to go out in it, so they just that's where they went. And then B, it was thawing, so a lot of the snow that covered it up was now revealing. I would say at least twice a week, going out to my car after my show, I would step in it, and it would be an obscenity-laced tirade. But I'm excited. I love dogs. She is she is a sweetheart of a dog, but I just don't want to see. And it was two deer. It wasn't just one. It was two. Two does. So I don't mess with that. They're very predatory, as they should be, and I get just a tad nervous with that. All right. 216-626-7901. We are going to be hooking up here in just a few minutes with Chris Manning, covering the Cleveland Cavaliers. Cavs in action against the Brooklyn Nets again tonight. 8 games remaining. They have a 3.5 game. They're actually 3.5 games back of the 76ers and 3 for third, and 3.5 games up on the New York Knicks for fifth. Obviously, as we all know, that fourth spot is very, very important and very, very critical. You want home court. Now, we'll talk more about this with Chris here in a moment, but I've said many, many times, the idea of going on the road in the NBA in the postseason, and it's a totally, totally different animal. And, not like I have experience doing it, but any NBA player, Chuck Barkley, Kenny Smith, Tim Legler, like they all say the same thing. You go on the road in the NBA playoffs, and it's just not, the regular season's over with. That's why last year, even if they were to get swept, even if they won the play-in and as long as they made it, because I just wanted to see them get that taste. But we shall see. The Cavaliers, though, will have home court if everything plays out the way we hope it plays out. As it stands now, they would have the fourth spot taking on the New York Knicks. But let's welcome in our guest, Chris Manning. He's a favorite of mine from back in the day. We go way, way, way back, Chris Manning and I. You can follow him on Twitter at CWMWrites. And also on the Locked On Cavs podcast. I'll tell you what, we'll step aside for a second, get him hooked up, be right back with Chris Manning. Don't go anywhere. Killing people. Just killing people. We wanted to drag it out a little bit more, but we couldn't. Without further ado, he is Chris Manning. You can follow him on Twitter at CWMWrites. He also is with the Locked On Cavs podcast. I just read a great article that he wrote for Forbes, and you can check all of that out as well. Chris, it is great to have you back on the Chico Borman Show, this time on the Big Play Network. How are you, sir?
I'm great. It's good to have you back, Chico. It's good to see you back cooking and doing your thing, and it's more fun to have you on video instead of just being on a call.
I feel like there should be disclaimers though with me, like being on
Me too.
video. Like, yeah,
Me too.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you got the hair, so I'm a scary looking dude with that bald thing going on. All right, let's start with this. Cavaliers, 8 games left. They are back in Brooklyn again tonight. Barring something unforeseen, and by unforeseen, a complete collapse. And, but we think the Cavs are going to hold down that 4th spot. We think the Knicks will probably be in the 5th spot. I know you wrote about it for Forbes. Is this a good matchup, bad matchup? What do you think for the Cavaliers if this were to stand pat?
I think it's tough, but I think it's favorable. I think they'll be favorites. I think the expectation should be for them to win. I think the Knicks are legitimately good. I mean, like, I think Randall's having a better year than he did when he was All NBA 2 years ago. Brunson's awesome. Quickly has really developed. Like, they have a really good team, and they have some pressure points. I think they can press on the Cavs, but I think the Cavs are better. I think Mitchell will be the best guy in that series, and they'll have home court, which is a big deal. I think it's like a 7-game series probably, but there's no reason to me that the Cavs should not win that series. I think they would be favorites against anyone they get in the first round, be it Brooklyn, be it Miami, but the Knicks would be the toughest team in my mind, but they should still be favorites. Still should expect to advance.
Chris, what's interesting about this series too? You mentioned Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson last year with the Mavericks eliminated Mitchell's Utah Jazz, and I mean, let's face it, Jalen Brunson had himself a series, and at times kind of abused Donovan Mitchell on the defensive end. I'm guessing, I know they'll always say, "Oh no, there's no revenge here," but I'm guessing Donovan Mitchell wouldn't mind getting a little bit of revenge here if this series does come to fruition.
Well, this would be the Mitchell, I think, redemption series, right? I mean, last year, if you go back to that series, that was the signal that Utah Jazz run was over. Mitchell was not trying really on defense. It spawned a lot of, I think, very fair questions about like what he was going to be as a two-way player in the league. And you get here, and you're having a Mitchell who's been, I think, dedicated on defense all year, who's been like effortful on defense all year. He's not like a lockdown, like all defensive guy, but he's like actually trying, and like you would trust him to stay in front of people in a playoff series. And it's like Brunson eliminated him and ended that Jazz run. And for him not only to go up against Brunson, but it's against the Knicks, the team he thought he was going to. There's so much to the series in terms of drama and layers and the stage that for me, as someone who'll get to cover it, that's the one I want, just because I think it will by far be the most fun one to cover.
Give us an idea, because the Knicks went on that incredible win streak, and what has really changed? I mean, other than we go back over the years, and it's always something in the front office and ownership and Dolan and all that. But what is it that has really clicked for the New York Knicks right now that has them in that position, in that 5 spot?
I think a couple of things. I think for one, I think Brunson has been awesome for them. I don't think he's quite like All NBA, but was deserving in the All-Star conversation, is creating at a high level, is making shots at a high level, like has given them structure. I think Emmanuel quickly, Tibbs didn't want to play him early in the year, but he's really developed into a really good two-way player, and I think should win 6th man of the year. Julius Randle's back to like an All NBA level, which he was not at last year, was the year before, and I think he's playing the best year of his career, taking the most volume threes he's ever taken. They have a deep team. Like, they have 2 good centers. They have a lot of good guards. They got Josh Hart. Like, this is the deep team with a lot of competency, with a lot of guys that know what they are and are just tough. And they kind of fit what Tibbs wants to do. And to Tibbs' credit, he's trusted the young guys. Like, Derrick Rose doesn't play in that team. Taj Gate, like, they're not playing like the old Tibbs favorites. He's really empowered the young guys to go out and do stuff, and that's been a big deal.
You look at the Knicks, and obviously Julius Randle wasn't that long ago. He had 57, and he has nights like that. But one of the things you feel good about, and I was let's go back a few months ago, because I was laughing when people were just all up in arms about Evan Mobley, and I'm sure you remember this. Like, oh my gosh, he hasn't taken that next step, and it's like, he's 22 years old. I mean, he's still trying to figure this thing out, and he was pretty damn good last year, so he set the bar pretty high. But I have all the confidence in the world, and here's a guy, we'll get to his offensive prowess in a moment, but defensively, he had a pretty good game against Julius Randle not long ago.
Yeah, Randle, and the last time that one of the times they played in New York, Randle had a big night. I think had 35, but it was on threes, 8 of 12 from 3. He was like 3 of 9 inside the paint. Mobley's process in that series is going to be deny him easy looks to the rim, deny his drives, deny him easy looks and use his hands to be physical. We saw just how well I think he defended Embiid recently, right? I think like you're going to trust Mobley in that series, and you're going to trust him to just say, okay, Julius Randle, if you go 8 of 12 from three, or 6 of 12, or 6 of 10, or whatever, I think you trust that process. At a certain point, they're going to get some shots, like he's going to get his shots, and I'd rather him be taking those than driving and getting into lane, getting fouls, and doing all of that. I absolutely trust Mobley to handle that in that series. There's no doubt.
Talking to Chris Manning, you can follow him on Twitter at CWM Writes. Also, he is locked in with the Locked On Cavs podcast. Writes for Forbes as well. Fear of the Sword. How many W-2s do you fill out, man? You got like 8 different jobs, man.
I would really like to if I could get like a local CPA to like sponsor me. That would be great.
We'll look into that for you. We'll try to give you
a cut.
There. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, let me continue a little bit with Evan Mobley here, and I'm going to say something that probably is going to raise a few eyebrows, maybe even yours. Donovan Mitchell is clearly their best player. Okay, Donovan Mitchell is, and the guy that can score it, and the guy that you want to see him with the ball in his hands. But Chris, I think when it comes down to crunch time moments, I might just feel more confident, and I realize, again, it depends on the situation and what you need to do with the basketball, but I actually might feel more confident in Evan Mobley because he just doesn't seem to get rattled.
You're going too far. You've gone too far.
Well, all right,
I thought you were going to Darius Garland, which I would have been on that ride with you.
Evan does not get rattled, man. He's the same guy over and he just tell me he doesn't get rattled, Chris. He just doesn't get rattled.
That guy is about one thing, and that's I think like playing winning, impactful basketball. Like that is what that guy cares about. I don't know like what his interests are. Like I don't know what like fully drives him internets, but like I do understand. You watch him play, you watch how he talks about things, you watch how everyone else talks about things. It's just like that guy loves basketball, and he's never going to shy away from the big moment. Like he's also willing to fail, I think is the biggest thing, right?
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Like think about like he is a guy that is going to go at Embiid. Like the other night, he was like hung with Embiid in that matchup, like was there up in his face, going at him on the other end as well. And even when he gets blocked or makes a mistake, it doesn't stop him from doing it again. And if you're talking about a guy who's going to thrive in the playoffs, who is going to succeed in that environment, I would trust that. I would trust that as a guy who's going to go in. He's probably going to make some mistakes. It's probably going to feel like a big moment, especially like if they're at MSG. That's going to be a raucous, crazy environment. That's going to be a big deal. But if he goes in and he's willing to fail and he's willing to go through adversity and come out the other side of it, and by all indications, he's going to do that time and time again, I would trust that's just going to work itself out. And I wouldn't trust him as much as Mitchell at this point or as much as Garland, but a ton of trust in him. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. And I want to be clear, Donovan Mitchell, he's been a godsend. I mean, his game's incredible. His leadership has been great. He's been, very active and energetic on the defensive side of the ball as well, which is why I think we'll see a completely different Donovan Mitchell on that side of the ball against Jalen Brunson, again, if that matchup does come to fruition, which we think it will. The only thing I would say is, like, Donovan Mitchell, it might be the only thing that concerns me about his game is that I need to see him do it in crunch time more. I guess you can say that about a lot of guys. I'm just a little concerned in crunch time. Is he going to be able to get it done? I know he's going to fill it up. I know he's going to play well, and I know he's their best player. But you know as well as I do, those big moments, now all of a sudden it's a bigger stage, which he's used to, but it's a bigger stage. You got to make the buckets when they matter. And I don't know if I 100% buy in that, oh yeah, Mitchell's gonna be that guy in that situation.
Here would be my counterpoint to that. Number one, he did it in the bubble. Go back and look at the Nuggets series. Go back and look at some of the stuff he did there. I think like the track record is there based on that. Like that guy's going to show up in big games. Secondly, the guy's motor, the guy's desire to win, I think does just kind of win out on this. The Cavs as a whole have not always been the best crunch time team this year, and I think that's maybe like it's worth diving into and trying.
Maybe that's what I'm getting at. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm getting at.
But like I look at Mitchell and I think, but like think about how we got the 71 against the Bulls. That was like, hey, I need to like miss a free throw. And yes, he committed a lane violation that they didn't call, but like he just went out and did the thing. In that game, he's like, okay, I literally need to score 71 and carry the team in that way. So I think I would trust him. I think the thing would say is like, I think you're still, it's gotten better over the season. It's going to even, I think, get better next year, but I think you're still seeing a group that is figuring out how to play fully together. And it's a different system for him. Garland's never played with anyone close to Donovan Mitchell's level. It's different for Mobley. It's different for Allen. Like, I think this is just like a big adjustment process for everyone. But I think certainly if it's game 7 in Cleveland and you need some buckets in the last 2 minutes, I'm trusting Mitchell to get those done.
You know, when we talk about guys turning it on at the right time and getting ready for postseason play, my oh my, because this has been an issue. Let's face it. You know, is the bench going to rise up? There was a time not that long ago when, man, the bench just wasn't there. Granted, you can always have more, but Karis LeVert has just been unbelievable, and not just on the offensive end. I think sometimes we look a little bit too much just, you know, how many points did he have? He has been absolutely locked in offensively, defensively, and could have a huge impact come postseason play.
The last month has been the best month of his Cavs career. He has been locked in. He has been making efforts on defense. He has been making his threes again. Like everything about his last month is what you'd hope you were getting from him. And he said recently that this is the healthiest he's been. He thinks that's a big part of why his like shots are going down. Like I tend to think that feels right. Like this is a guy that's had a lot of injuries. He had a cancer scare. Like it's been like kind of sometimes in and out for him. And I think he feels like in a groove and a rhythm from the day 1 of the season on media day. He talked about being healthy and all that stuff. And, you know, look, the cynic in me was like, okay, let's see if you're healthy in January and March and February. He is, and you see it really, really paying off. And if this is a guy you can trust, this is a guy you might be able to close games with. I think that's a really, really big deal that you found that in this version of LeVert this year by hook or by crook.
I think I know what the answer to this one is. And again, we're talking to Chris Manning. Follow him on Twitter at CWM Writes. Does great stuff with the Locked On Cavs podcast. Also writes for Forbes and Fear the Sword. What concerns you? And again, still 8 games left, I know. But what are some concerns for this Cavalier basketball team as the postseason draws near?
I think you just need to see what your bench is ultimately going to be. They've been playing better of late, but like you got to just see how LeVert does scale up in the playoffs. You got to see what Okoro is going to give you in that setting. I think he's improved in a meaningful way, but like he still has games where he doesn't score, and teams are absolutely going to leave him open. You know, like are Jetty Osmond and Lamar Stevens going to hang in the playoffs or are their warts going to kind of get exposed, and you have to ride with someone who's suboptimal? You know, is Rubio going to be the best version of himself by then? I think that the signs of late have been encouraging, but I think it's about the depth. I don't have any concerns about Garland or Mitchell or Mobley or Allen. Those 4 guys are awesome. They give you a great foundation. It's everything else that you need to see how those guys perform. You need to see if those guys do enough for you that you feel like you found like a role guy or 2 that you can just absolutely bank on when you're tightening a rotation on to 7, 8 guys against some of these really, really good teams. The margins are thin. Maybe not even in round 1, but you get to round 2, you're probably getting Giannis. Like the margins, if you want a chance at that series, those guys have to show up and play well and just give you something in these small sample sizes. So to me, it's about the bench. It's about, can you get enough quality minutes for them just to survive and get enough out of them to compete against these other really good teams?
Let's talk about JB Bickerstaff. I think he's done just an absolutely incredible job. But one of the things I mentioned to you that, you know, it wasn't that long ago that people were worried about the bench and what's going to happen, still worried about the bench. But one of the other things that has cropped up at certain points this season has been, well, you know what? JB Bickerstaff has been excellent at developing these guys, but I don't know if he's the guy to take him to the next level. I scoff at that. I do realize that he's going to make mistakes. I think people need to realize that. But I think it's also fair to say that, you know, when he gets in the postseason with this group, you know, as we talk about, we're waiting to see how they're going to react to the big moments in the postseason and going on the road. Is it fair to say also that, you know, JB's under that microscope?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a learning experience for him as well. I mean, I think we haven't seen him in that environment. We haven't seen him, need to make the adjustments game to game and what game planning will look like, right? Like we just haven't seen him go through that. All of these guys are going to be going through that really for the first time. Like the plane was like kind of like an appetizer for this, but it's not the same. It is not the same to not have a 7 game series and have the game plan for a team that is, guys that have been through this to varying degrees before, right? I think that's absolutely fair just to see what he looks like, how the rotations go. Does he make the right calls at the right times? And what does he learn from this? What is this? Chico, I look at this season for basically everybody as like a springboard into what is to come next year and the year after, right? Like I think you should live in the now. You should enjoy this year. It's been a great season to cover. I'm sure if you're like a diehard, this has been a really fun season with how good they are. They're like first in league in net rating. This team's awesome. But I think like this year is a springboard to what's to come. And I think for JB, it's like, okay, what did I learn this year about managing a team with this level of expectations? And then what did I learn in the playoffs? What did I go through in the playoffs? And what kind of adjustments do you make going forward? I mean, he could be going against guys that have, Tibbs, for all the jokes you can have about him. He was like, he's won a lot of games. He was the architect of the Celtics defense during the KG era. He's been around. You get Bud in round 2. Bud, won a title with the Bucks. You could theoretically go against Spo, who's the best coach in the league. Like he's going to have his own matchups and things that he's going to learn a lot from. And I think that in itself is a positive for the Cavs as well, as much as it maybe drives people kind of crazy sometimes in the moment if things don't go exactly perfect.
I was talking about this as we were bringing you in, and it's stating the obvious, but I do want to get your thoughts on it. I go back to last year, and it was regardless. Nobody expected them to be what they were last year, and my gosh, it was so exciting watching these guys take that step and the next step and doing everything they did. That said, I remember saying it wasn't just, I want to see them make the postseason because, well, it's going to be fun, it's going to be entertaining, and we can watch the Cavs. Yeah, that goes without saying, but there is something to playoff experience. And it seems like every single NBA player, former NBA player and current NBA player that's been in it, they say, you haven't really experienced it until you go on the road for a playoff game because it's just a different atmosphere and different altogether. Your thoughts?
No, I think 100%. There's in the history of the league, for everybody, for Michael, for LeBron, for basically everybody, you have to lose and go through this before you get to where you're going. This just how this has worked. You don't show up on day one and get to where you're going and immediately hit the finals or reach the mountaintop. It doesn't work that way. It would have been great for them last year to get into the first round. Even if they lose in 4 or 5 games and they were dealing with injuries and all that stuff, they might have. That would have been good for them. I think this year, like getting into the first round, having home court, and getting to advance will be like a really big deal. Like, look, I think like teams like Memphis have really benefited from some of that. I think like you go around the league, like there's a ton of these. Phoenix, I think like Booker has really benefited from going through some of those things. Like I think all these guys, as they're accelerating and growing up, you go through that, it makes you better. You understand how to play at that level because it turns into a different sport. It turns into a different way the game functions. And for Garland, I think in Mobley, those guys going through it is going to set them up for a ton. And it would have been great for them last year. I think you're dead on to get there, go through it, and for Bickerstaff to go through it as well. Even if things were suboptimal, that would have been, I think, perfect for them to actually have already had that experience this year. Maybe it changes how we feel about them to some degree. Maybe it doesn't, but I think it absolutely would have helped. It's a minor thing, but it absolutely would have helped.
A few more minutes with Chris Manning from the Locked On Cavs podcast, also with Forbes and Fear the Sword. He joins us here on the Chico Borman Show on the Big Play Network. So, it was a story, and I think even still today people are talking about it, but it has quelled a bit. That remains to be seen if it's going to be a story again. But Kevin Love, I know the feel-good story was, well, you can't send him on his way because he's Kevin Love and he means so much and he's a great leader, and all of that is true. And I think one day the number will go up in the rafters. But take us through that whole process because it felt like to me, look, he didn't return from the wrist injury, like he had hoped, and I think everybody hoped. And then it just became, you know what? We don't trust you offensively. If your shot's not going, then you're just not going to see the floor because we know you're a liability defensively. And then Kevin's response, and you totally respect it, is, hey, get me out of here. I want to go somewhere where I can play. How accurate is that?
I think that's dead accurate. And I don't think like for as far as I can tell, I don't think the frustration for him is like with the other players or like the coaching staff. The way that like Chris Fedor had this, I think, kind of most concretely in writing, but it seems like it is very much like a frustration with the decision makers in the organization, and that seems to be where the frustration is, and just like a lack of like rapport there, which happened before. I mean, like famously when he kind of had a reported outburst and stuff, like wasn't at the coaches, it was like with Kobe Altman in that, and I think that's where the frustration seemed to be. It does not like it seems like the players, like and how they greeted him in Miami and like saying goodbye to him, it seems like it was very much above kind of like the people he's with day to day. And I'm sure also like if you're him, I very much get wanting to go out on your shield, so to speak, and play and like actually try to contribute. He hasn't been great in Miami, but I think it feels like there's just like there was some kind of miscommunication there about like what this would look like or how he maybe feels like he was treated. We may never know fully. He may never say it publicly,
Right.
but there's some information there that I feel like would explain some of this in a more meaningful way to me. And it's about like how he was relating above coaching staff, above the players.
Yeah, I guess, I'm trying to look at this from both sides. And like I said, I can certainly see Kevin's side. But I think if you're Kobe Altman, like, of course the fan sentiment is going to be, no, you got to keep him. But, we weren't seeing things when he came back after the wrist injury, and I think he even admitted as much. Like the shot wasn't falling, the wrist hadn't responded like he wanted to, and in that type of situation, okay, yeah, you'd love to just keep him along for the ride because he's Kevin Love, but if he's not contributing at that point or at the level that you need him to, sometimes it's not the popular decision, but sometimes the tough decision had to be made. So is there something maybe behind the scenes? Has there always been a little bit of friction, you think, between those two?
I mean, I think so. I mean, I think like there was notably friction, like, after he signed the extension, like it seemed like the moment he signed the extension, he thought he might be going elsewhere. And there was all of the other kind of the outbursts and things where he just clearly wasn't happy. It wasn't until last season that it felt like he was happy again. And then also from the Caps perspective, I mean, they signed Dean Wade to this contract extension right before the season. That's your Kevin Love replacement. They said as much. They're like, hey, part of the reason Kevin's moving on is because we want to play Dean. Now, Dean's out of rotation, not playing well, and like just his shot completely lost him. He seems to have lost confidence, which is troubling. And he's not going to be in the playoff rotation, I think, as of now. But I think there always was some friction. And I think, Chico, the other thing is, how often do we actually get clean endings with any of this? We tell like it'll be fine in time. He'll come back, get his jersey retired. 2016 team is in memoriam. I hope they make a trophy with him, 2 beers to the face. Like I hope that's I hope that's the statue he gets, right? But
I love that.
Like J.R. Smith didn't leave on clean terms. Like Kyrie obviously didn't leave on clean terms. Like I don't like none of this in any sport. You never leave in these ways. It is like a clean breakup. There's always friction. There's always competing interests because the guys want to stay around. They want to be rewarded for what they've done in the past, but the team has to move forward and look forward. And I think there's naturally going to be friction there. I think this was like, it's fitting to me that this is how Kevin Love ended. Because if he just like played through this year, contributed in the playoffs, and like he walks away, then it would have almost felt like too clean. And this felt right in a very like messed up kind of way. This felt right to me that like it didn't end cleanly because nothing about his time was clean. There's always some friction, always some weirdness going on. And I think that's the case with most guys, with most of our players. It almost never ends in this clean, harmonious way because the players and these teams and the communities often have competing interests, I think. And I think that really bubbles up in a way through Kevin Love.
All right, before we get out of here, I want to go back a ways. It seems like it was a long time ago. What was the movie? And I know I've asked you this numerous times, even before I left. Yeah, I can hear you laughing, see you laughing.
Catch me if you can.
Catch me if you can. That's right.
Even Spielberg, one of our greats. Chico, I actually learned something recently about this movie that I want, if you get around to watching it and you're familiar. Have you watched The Sopranos?
A little bit.
Okay, so
Not
you're
as much as
vaguely familiar with James Gandolfini. I recently
yes.
learned the rewatchables from The Ringer did rewatchables on Catch Me If You Can, and I learned from that podcast episode that James Gandolfini was supposed to play the Tom Hanks role, and I can't stop thinking about it because I think it would be a better movie with James Gandolfini instead of Tom Hanks.
Wow. Over time. I mean, Tom Hanks is
He's doing a weird accent in Catch Me If You Can though.
okay.
It's like it's like kind of like Tom Hanks is just getting to do Tom Hanks stuff and do whatever he wants. And Gandolfini is supposed to be in that movie and he couldn't because of The Sopranos. And I think about that. I've been thinking about that a lot, that I feel like Gandolfini in that movie would make it better, but that movie is great.
I've been thinking about seeing that and I keep forgetting, but I will. By the next time we have you on here on the Chico Borman Show, I will have watched Catch Me If You
Okay.
Can. So I promise you.
I hope then we'll find another one that you haven't seen that I can bully you into.
Oh, there's a
watching
ton.
over, like,
I am that guy. I am that guy.
Have you
at the
seen
party.
Heat? Have you seen Heat?
No.
Like the Michael May. Oh, okay, you got to watch Heat. You got to. I'm just gonna give you lists.
I haven't watched
That's what we're
Star
gonna do.
Wars. I've never seen Star Wars.
That's good. I learned there's people that recently learned are watching The Mandalorian and haven't watched Star Wars, and I find that just like insane.
Now, and I want to be clear. I don't say it as a badge of honor. Like I'm not
Yeah.
saying like, oh yeah, I never watched it. I just it's that type of movie
Yeah.
has never really interested me.
Yeah.
And I totally admit to not being up with a lot of the, the popular movies but I am definitely that guy at the party where, somebody asks and I'm like, no, what? You've never seen, what? I'm always that guy. So it's okay. I mean, I'm used to it.
Look, we all have our own interests, and then my escapism is the movies. That is like my escapism.
Are you a
I'll be in
Dateline
the-
fan? Are you a Dateline with Keith Morrison? Because that's my big passion.
No, I'm not.
Huh.
I'm gonna go see John McFord this weekend. I'm gonna have a great time.
Well, enjoy that and enjoy the rest of the regular season. And hopefully we're looking at that 4-5 matchup, Cavaliers and the Knicks. We will have you on again before the playoffs. And it's been a great year. Hopefully we get some extended play out of our Cavaliers. But great talking to you again, pal. Keep up the good work. We'll do it again soon.
Thank you, Chico.
All right, that is Chris Manning. Again, follow him on Twitter at CWM Writes. Also, Locked On Cavs podcast, writes for Forbes as well. Wrote a great article in Forbes looking at that Cavs-Knicks showdown, which we think is going to be a near certainty at this point. Catch Me If You Can. Nick, have you seen
I'm not a big TV movie guy. I'm like you. I'm the guy at the party that people are. You've never seen. Yeah,
that makes me feel good.
Yeah, we're the same in that way. I haven't seen anything.
Yeah,
I don't have the attention span for movies. I end up on my phone. I end up on my computer doing something else. I just
having to correct my mistakes on social media. I mean, that's
having to
enough.
sit down for 2 hours to watch a movie. I don't know. I like documentaries, but I can't tell you like the last movie that I really sat down and watched.
Like new movie I haven't. Like there's one out now. And again, it's sports related. That's the other thing I get is that, Chico, you can watch, and I do have favorite movies that have nothing to do with sports, but I am drawn. Sonny Vaccaro, I definitely want to see. That's out. Not sports related, but I want to see Whitney Houston's movie. Big Whitney. I think Whitney Houston has the best voice ever. Best female voice I've ever heard in my entire life. What's that?
Gab Cruz, big Whitney Houston fan.
Is she?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, Gab's she's got a set of pipes on her too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she can sing. But Whitney Houston, like you go back to that national anthem, and I know it's played for the Super Bowl, whichever one it was, Giants Bills, I believe, and it just absolutely. I mean, I'm dumbfounded listening to that. But she's got a movie, and then the other one, Elvis, also has one that I'm really interested in seeing. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, a lot to unpack from Chris Manning. If you'd like to weigh in on Cavaliers' final 8 games. Knicks, Cavs. You like the Cavs in that matchup. We can talk about that. Also, As we said, we'll get back to March Madness. We got the Sweet 16 beginning up, or I should say getting started again tonight. We'll run down those 4 games, and don't look now, but it's right around the corner, and we will tell you what that is when we come back as well. It's the Chico Borman Show. You're listening to it and watching it on the Big Play Network, on Twitter, where you can follow us at Chico Show, CLE. All righty, final half hour of the program on this Thursday afternoon. Good to have you along. Chico Borman Show here on the Big Play Network, and good stuff from Chris Manning. For a while when the Knicks were on that crazy win, I think they had won like 15 in a row. Wasn't it like 15?
They were red hot, and I was getting scared, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's still, hey, Thibodeau's a great coach. Jalen Brunson is a great player, and Julius Randle. There's nights where he can just absolutely fill it up. As I mentioned, had 57 not too long ago. But I do think the Cavs. I do think this is a good matchup. I do think we will see. I hope. I'm starting to get a few messages. People thinking I'm like I don't like Donovan Mitchell. You got to be kidding me. Donovan Mitchell's incredible. As I said, he is a godsend. Not only to the Cavaliers, but the city. Like, he embraced everything. I love Donovan Mitchell. I'm just saying, and it's not a bad thing. I think I want to see him really answer the bell in crunch time, in the playoffs. Like, the last, few seconds, Cavs are down by a bucket, Cavs are down by 1, and it's going to Donovan Mitchell. Everybody in the arena knows it's going to Donovan Mitchell. But Donovan Mitchell comes up. Like, that's the next thing. And it's if anything, I think it's a compliment, because it just goes to show he's done everything else. And, I think the defensive end, again, we talked about it. You go back to last year, and his Utah Jazz got knocked out by the Dallas Mavericks. Jalen Brunson, he kind of had his way. I mean, I think Brunson had a 40-point game. At least one 40-point game in that series, and it didn't. So I'm guessing Donovan Mitchell, not that he needs extra motivation, but I think he will come out with some extra motivation. But, looking like it will be the Cavaliers and the Knicks.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, Chico. Just wanting to see more. I mean, the NBA season is so long in terms of, okay, it's 82 games, but it's 82, all right, sometimes meaningless games, especially this year in Cleveland. Think of how many superstars we've been robbed of seeing due to load management and things like that. So I don't think you're completely off base wanting to see more from Donovan Mitchell, especially come playoff time where it's a completely different animal. I think you're pretty on par there.
Okay. Yeah, it's he is, and I think he will rise up and get some of those shots, make some of those shots. But to me, it's like that next thing. And when I realize with Evan Mobley, and I appreciate Chris, because we have that relationship.
That was funny.
You're losing your mind, bud. But I say it all the time about Mobley. Like, he is a poker. I don't know if poker is what he does when he's not playing basketball, but he does not get rattled. And, you watch, you think of Julius Randle too. Like, I know he had a big game, but they were on he wasn't on threes. And that's, those are the types of things that Evan Mobley can bring to the table, has brought to the table really since his rookie season. But I think this is a good matchup. I do think it's a good matchup for the Cavaliers. 216-626-7901. 216-626-7901. March Madness again. It is fired up again tonight, and we've got 4 games on tap, thus the Sweet 16. 4 games, 8 teams, Sweet 16. Michigan State, Kansas State. And Kansas State is a 1.5-point underdog. That one surprised me. And I know you say, well, I mean, Chico, you shouldn't be shocked. Michigan State, Tom Izzo. Yeah, I know. I think Kansas State's the better team. I think their year, remember when they upset Kansas and their coach got, speaking of coaches, with demonstrations, he got up and he said, hey, this is what you guys should get used to here in Manhattan. They've been a great story. I like Kansas State in that one. Arkansas, UConn. Of the 4 games, that's the one I'm least confident in. And I think it's a credit to both those teams. It's a credit to Arkansas. Connecticut is a 4-point favorite. I think they should be a 4-point favorite. But Eric Musselman's group, and, they're starting to get healthy at the right time, which is always very, very important this time of the year. Nick Smith Jr., among others. But I think that's going to be a great matchup. That one on the confidence scale, with 4 being the greatest and 4 being the most confident, it is number 1 for me. I've got Tennessee as 4. I think Tennessee handles FAU. Just watched the Volunteers absolutely bludgeon the Duke Blue Devils, and I don't think they're going to have any issues with FAU. UCLA. I think UCLA, not a blowout, but I think UCLA handles Gonzaga, by the time it's all said and done, pretty convincingly. UCLA is a 1.5 favorite. They're 3 on my confidence meter. And then, so it goes Tennessee 4, UCLA 3, Kansas State and Michigan State 2, and then Arkansas, UConn 1. I have no idea how that one's going to go. That's why I think it might be the best matchup of the 4 that at least I'm looking forward to the most as well. So we can get yours, get your confidence picks there. Also, 1 week from today, Major League Baseball is kicking off. The Cleveland Guardians, your Cleveland Guardians, our Cleveland Guardians in Seattle to take on the Mariners. 2 teams. We talked to Brett Boone yesterday on the show. The former All-Star second baseman spent some pretty darn good years in Seattle, including one where he drove in 141 runs with 37 home runs and a .330 average, and still finished 3rd in the MVP voting behind his teammate Ichiro and Jason Giambi. But I think that's going to be a great start to the year. Yeah, there's 162 of them, but those are 2 teams very evenly matched. Those are 2 teams that, I think both have legitimate playoff expectations, and for good reason. You heard Booney say yesterday he likes the Guardians in the American League Central. I don't know why you wouldn't. I know Chicago is, if they're able to get healthy, and injuries have been a huge deal for them. But hey, you know what? You also had the Guardians last year with 17 guys making their Major League debut. Chicago changes managers, Tony La Russa. It seemed like a fit early on, but you could even detect early in the season that it wasn't going to work. So he's now out. Jose Abreu stays in the American League. He goes over to Houston, makes them even stronger. I agree with Booney, and I not because he said this yesterday, because I felt this way for a while. I think the Astros in the American League have to be the favorite, and I might even say, I know the Dodgers are loaded, but I might put the Astros right now the best team in Major League Baseball. That is a loaded team. Again, they added more power in the middle of the lineup with Jose Abreu. You got some young guys that are going to be taking that next step. Jeremy Pena is one of their youngsters. And then the rotation. Like, you would normally look at that Astros rotation and say, man, they lose Justin Verlander, and, what are you going to do, losing Verlander? Hey, Framber Valdez, very, very good. Christian Javier nearly threw a no-no in the postseason. Lance McCullers is very Lance McCullers, I should say, very injury prone. So remains to see with him. You got Luis Garcia, Jose Urquidy. Don't forget about Hunter Brown too, who he's a youngster that a lot of folks have their eyes on. A guy that could very easily. I talked about McCullers being injured. Maybe he doesn't start the year in the rotation, McCullers, and that would set up well for Hunter Brown, and he just might not give that up. So I just think that team is absolutely positively loaded, the Houston Astros. But, 1 week from today, Nick, I am jacked up. I know there's a lot going on right now with free agency and the Browns, and we just talked Cavaliers playoffs, I am so excited, especially after last year. A lot of it because of last year. For this Guardian season to get underway.
It's a busy time of year, and I always laugh when people, when Brown season ends, and it usually ends with a clunk like it does, like it did this year, and it just kind of fades to nothingness. And, people, friends, kind of the distant family that knows what I do, talking about sports, doing sports social media, sports online stuff, they're like, well, what now? What now? Brown season's over. What now? It's like, yeah, it's probably about a week of downtime. You still have the rest of the playoff games. And, being so tied to the betting world too, like obviously NFL playoffs, Super Bowl, all huge for that. Then you get about a week, 2 weeks of downtime, especially now that the NFL added that last week of the season and another additional week. Okay, now you got the combine. Okay, right after the combine, it flips to free agency. Now we're talking about opening day. NBA playoffs are 7 games away for the Cavs. I mean,
and the greatest sports spectacle of all, in my mind, March Madness.
Exactly. Like there's never really a down period. And I know there's a couple weeks of the year where people like to get away, kind of take a step back from the mic for a while, but never truly a down time. After the draft will be, the NFL draft training camp is going to be the next thing that comes up, after the finals. So there's never really that dead time.
And we're, if you go back a couple of years ago, and, the Guardians were in transition. Again, nobody expected them last year. I didn't. I thought, if they could be my main thing with the Guardians last year, at least going into the season, was, if they're 500, great. I know they'll be competitive just because, that's how Tito and company run things. But, if they're 500, great. Just identify the guys that you need to identify moving forward. Be done with the, no disrespect, but be done with the Oscar Mercados and the Bobby Bradleys and the Bradley Zimmers and those guys, and identify the guys that you're going to have moving forward. Not only did they do that, and did they have 17 guys, 17 make their major league debut, but they do it and still win 92 games. And now you're looking at that, and there's questions. There's questions. Can Oscar Gonzalez, can he be the guy? Can he continue to progress the way he did last year? Now there's a book out on guys. Is he going to be able to lay off the off-speed stuff, and is he going to be better in that regard? But it's so nice to go into the season, and you think about all the guys last year before opening day. Stephen Kwan, that announcement came, I think, the day before, was that Stephen Kwan was going to be the starting, at that time, I think he was going to be the starting right fielder. He ends up now being their left fielder. But, you had so many guys that, started opening day last year that are no longer with the team, or if they are with the team, in a different position. So now you can pencil it in, and you've got, Stephen Kwan in left, Miles Straw in center. Might we see some Will Brennan if Miles Straw continues to struggle? Possibly. You've got Oscar Gonzalez in right, and then some guy named Jose Ramirez. I hear he's pretty good at third. Rosario and Andres Jimenez and Josh Bell will be playing some first base. Josh Naylor, DH. Mike Zunino, if he can stay healthy. Obviously, that's a big ask considering the injuries he's dealt with. And yeah, the rotation, Savali hasn't had a good spring. Plesac, looking for those guys to bounce back. You also have young guys that are kind of knocking on the door, need to get healthy. But to think that a couple of years ago, the Guardians seemed to be in a state of transition, and nobody 3 years ago was like, oh, yeah, I can see the Cavaliers in 3 years, 2 years, just, being a legitimate playoff team and a team that, with the exception of the experience, which is very, very important, I think from a talent standpoint, can match up with a lot of teams. So, it's amazing how this whole thing has changed in just, 3 years, where we thought, oh man, this is going to be a long rebuild. And 2-3 years ago, I remember Kobe Altman were waiting for the final press conference of the season. And I remember saying to myself, like, gosh, is he the right guy for the job? I was dead wrong. Remember having to send out Valentine's Day cards and Christmas cards. Like, apologies. I'll be the first one to say I was extremely concerned, and Kobe Altman has just taken myself and anybody else who was along that route and said, I got this, and he does, and he did. But the fact that both of those teams that we thought might be headed toward just did the exact opposite, and that's what makes it so exciting.
And then there's the Browns. No, I'm just kidding. I'm with you. It is so exciting, especially that time of year. I'm a little bit less extreme, but it reminds me of, the Guardians opening day, or not opening day. It was the Cavs opening day. Banner was going up at the Q at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And then the Guardians game 1 of the World Series right there at Progressive Field. It's not going to be that same intensity, but there's a very good likelihood that opening day in Cleveland could have a home Cavs game in town. I mean, the city is going to be buzzing this year, this spring, with their sports. And for the first time in a long time, so to speak, for these two teams, at least since that 2016, been a little bit of a reload.
I will never forget back to 2016. I mean, here obviously it was crazy, and we were just, we were drunk on everything that was literally and figuratively, but figuratively on all the success. But it was just incredible, like on that opening day, and the Cavaliers getting their rings and all of that sort of thing, playoff games, and you're just sitting there going, or I think it was the Guardians with the playoff games, and you're basically saying to yourself, every single sports outlet is crammed in Gateway Plaza.
Yep.
Like, you looked out, NBA on TNT was there, MLB Network was there, ESPN was there, everybody was there. And to just look out into that plaza and see shoulder to shoulder was just incredible, absolutely incredible. And of course, our city, I love this because, for so many years, and even to this day, out of towners, Cleveland. But that was really, I think, when a lot of folks in the media, because they had to spend more than a day or two.
You were forced to hang out in Cleveland, especially from the basketball world. Think about it like this: 4 straight consecutive trips to the NBA Finals. If you were national media, you were forced to spend some time in Cleveland.
I remember talking to Mark Spears, who was at the time writing for ESPN. I think he's still with ESPN, Spears. He might not be. But I remember him saying, because he's a big baseball fan too, and so he was, it was in that summer, Cavs postseason, and the Guardians were playing, and they were having a great year, and he went over to the ballpark and obviously was covering the Cavs, but he was in town like a lot of those guys and gals covering those two items for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, a month. And he goes, 2 things he said. One, the restaurant scene here is unbelievable. He goes, I just haven't stayed here long enough to appreciate it and realize it. And he said the second thing is, like, he found a little jazz club right, on, I think it was, I want to say right there on Carnegie, on right by the ballpark. And he's like, this place is just incredible. And he goes, it really does have everything, but nobody really had time to look into it. So everybody just kind of fell in line with the jokes and, oh, well, Cleveland. No, because when push came to shove and those folks had a chance to be here for a while, you saw, how our city just came together and it was awesome. So looking forward to that again with the Cavaliers playoffs, and maybe the Browns are going to figure this out.
Wouldn't that be a joy? Wouldn't it be a joy, Chico? Because look, I mean, the Cavs, we know at this point they're a lock for the playoffs. That 4 seed, they're just about cemented there. The Guardians are the favorite on our friends at Tipico to win their division.
Central Division, yep.
And then their over-under is at 86.5 games. So you're looking at a ballpark area of 90-win season yet again. We know the Guards are going to be good. We know the Guards are probably going into the playoffs again. That's 2 teams in town. Again, they were just good 5 years ago at the same time together again. And in that same time span, the Browns, you've done it once. So it would be so nice for just once to have all 3 teams in town be competitive. And the Browns are giving you the sauce, the secret, the recipe that it looks like they're putting on the facade. They're rolling out the red carpet. Like this should be the year again. Obo on the D-line. Dalvin Tomlinson on the D-line. Trade yesterday for Elijah Moore. Want Thornhill on that defense.
Anthony Walker is back with the Browns.
Is back. Come on, Browns. Like just once. Give us a perfect trifecta. It'd be so much fun.
Well, and it's, again, it's not going to happen every year, and it's difficult to do. But it's just the fact that Browns fans have been through this for so many years. And I'll be the first to say, I thought, when he talked about winning culture, I thought after 2020, hey, they were well on their way. And, there's a variety of things that you can chalk up to. I mean, obviously, Baker Mayfield didn't work out, the injuries, and then you get Deshaun Watson, and he's got the suspension and all that stuff hanging over your head. And, well, Odell Beckham didn't work out. And I think maybe some teams figured some things out. I wonder about the Browns' ability to make adjustments to the adjustments that were made after that 2020 season. But, this is where you say, yeah, they have a lot of talent still in place. They've added some guys, but until we see how they all come together, how they is Jim Schwartz running that wide 9. Are these guys exactly who he's looking for? Jim Schwartz weighed in a lot as far as personnel. I like that. Andrew Berry has no problem. One thing about Andrew Berry, I'll say, and I think can say pretty confidently, he has no problem putting his ego on the shelf. And not every GM can do that. Not every head coach can do that. But there's more to it than just being selfless. You gotta get these guys to come together somehow, some way. And, if it doesn't happen this year, I think you're going to see more heads rolling. And we don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that.
It only sets them back further whenever that happens. I mean, look at the 2 teams in town. Okay, I get JB Bickerstaff. This is year 3 for him, really his second full season in town. So maybe a little bit there. But I mean, Kobe Altman, he's been around. He's been the head of that ship and building this young core. I mean, imagine if Jimmy Haslam owned the Cavs after Darius Garland's rookie season where DG was the worst player in the league. Hey, Kobe, pack your stuff. It would have been on the greener pastures for Kobe Altman.
I never even gave that a thought.
Because Jimmy just is not patient in that way, and Dan traditionally, historically, hadn't been either.
Yeah.
But he saw it through for whatever reason, whether it was
took a lot of heat from the public, and and then
there was one offseason, and it might have been after it was after Garland's rookie year, where Kobe Altman didn't speak with the media until probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks after the season, and people were absolutely livid. Like, where is this guy? The Cavs had yet another disappointing year. They were headed back towards the lottery where they didn't win again, and they ended up with a Coro. I mean, things really could have gotten horrible for the Cavs, but they stick with the plan. They get the right guys in place. They develop DG.
Kobe has just done a phenomenal job. Phenomenal job.
He has, and I give a lot of that credit to Dan for sticking with them and seeing the thing through. Yep. And then obviously you look across the street with the Guardians. They're just a model of stability. I mean, Antonetti, he's been there. I don't know if the guy has ever lost a trade in his tenure as an executive.
It's
in
amazing
baseball.
to me. I'm not gonna. Good thing the show is just about over. I don't understand why are people not everybody, but there is a decent contingent of fans in this town who are reluctant to give this Guardians team credit. Now, again, would I love the Dolans to spend more money, and would I love and maybe that's coming, the infusion of it might be a little while. It went up this year. They're never going to be, the landscape of baseball it's not changing. It is what it is. And so, yes, I get that frustration, but man, when you do this year after year after year after year, when you are the model as a front office and you've got a skipper that guys love to play for and a great clubhouse. And it's you know what it is? It's like the opposite of the Cleveland Browns. Yep. I mean, I hate to say it, but it is. But because, the Browns do rule, and that's fine. I'm a diehard Browns fan as well. But that has always been something, and I never realized it until I moved back here about 12, 13 years ago. I never realized it was an issue. I mean, it really was, and still to this day kind of remains one. All right, go ahead.
I'm with you. I'm glad that the show is nearing its end. But just
thanks a lot, Nick.
No, because I feel like we truly could do. We're live from 1 to 3. I feel like we could go 3 to 6.
I have, and I've angered a lot of people with that
on just this topic alone. But I feel like to answer that question of why are people currently hesitant to give this Guardians team their flowers as currently structured, the Guardians aren't as fun. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe being consistently good for so long.
Well,
but
for people, baseball's not. So there's a lot of people that you give them football and they'll,
Is it because the Guardians didn't treat like yesterday with the Elijah Moore thing? Like that would that's some big, sexy new addition. It's really not. I mean, he's had over 500 yards receiving season once. He's a young, promising player, sure. But it's just like that constant.
And I'm okay. I want to be. I'm okay with the move.
Same,
I mean, I'm not.
I love the move.
Crazy, but I mean, yeah.
But then you check Twitter and people are like, "This is the second coming of Jerry Rice." I mean, whereas the Guardians, this offseason, they didn't do a lot. They did little clever, smart things. Zanino, they got another vet catcher to go with their just stud starting rotation. And like you said, Chico, we hope guys like Savali, Plesac find their way. They add Josh Bell, that big bat that people were kind of clamoring for. And it's like, where's the love? I mean, opening day is a week away. We got to get the Guardians. I think that's our mission for tomorrow through next week. Guards vibes in Cleveland need to be through the roof for opening day.
That's going to, and again, you talk about a good opening series. Seattle is definitely on the come, and that is a very, very good club as well. All right. Thank you to Chris Manning for joining us. Thank you, Nick Padone. Great job as always. Real quick before we get out of here, what is our bet? What game did we decide on?
We got to lock this bad boy in.
Did we? And we're going spread on this?
Yeah, let's go through. I mean, we could toss in a parlay. I know Dave is hot on the parlays, so
he is hot
whatever you want to do, man. The floor is yours.
I'm gonna go make it UConn, Arkansas.
Okay.
I think Arkansas is gonna getting 4. I like them. I think I feel confident saying they might win outright. And I no disrespect to Terrence Oglesby, knows a hell of a lot more than I do, and I know they're very physical. But there's something special about Musselman's team, and like I said, getting Nick Smith Jr. back, and
So on the Tipico app, I have it pulled up right here. Arkansas plus 3.5. Is that what you're riding with?
Okay, we'll go Arkansas 3.5, and when Arkansas gets that done, Dave will be bringing in an all-you-can-eat fish fry. And when I say all-you-can-eat,
That's all you could eat.
If it's sandwiches, then he's got to order like 30 of them. I mean, he's got the deep pockets. We know that. All right, we're out of time. Thanks to all of you. Do it again tomorrow afternoon, beginning at 1. It is the Chico Borman Show, and it's all right here on the Big Play Network. Have a great Thursday night, everybody.